What happens when the United States engages in a battle it can't win? The US believed it could pressure Canada into compliance by imposing aggressive tariffs. However, instead of yielding, Canada responded with a powerful economic counterstrike that quickly spiraled beyond Washington's control. In reaction to US trade sanctions, Canada launched a $155 billion retaliation package, targeting vital American industries and putting hundreds of thousands of US jobs in jeopardy. But the fallout didn't stop there. Factories began shutting down, prices soared, and economic anxiety spread like wildfire. This isn't merely a trade dispute. It could mark a shift in North America's power dynamics. As economic hardship deepens across American states, questions arise. Could this trade conflict deepen internal divisions within the US? Is Washington losing its grip on economic supremacy? And is Canada signaling the end of America's unquestioned dominance? Let's dive in. On February 4 Hodu, Ivirain 2025, the United States imposed tariffs on Canadian and Mexican goods, citing border security and drug trafficking concerns. But beneath the surface, this was more than a policy move. It was an economic attack aimed at destabilizing Canada's economy. These tariffs applied to nearly all Canadian exports, with the exception of oil and energy, which faced reduced rates, expecting little resistance. The US was blindsided when Canada responded swiftly and decisively. Just days later, Canada announced a colossal $155 billion tariff package targeting American goods. The first wave of tariffs, worth $30 billion, hit immediately, aimed at major US exports. An additional $125 billion in tariffs loomed, ready to escalate the economic standoff. Unlike the broad strokes of US tariffs, Canada's strategy was calculated. They struck industries crucial to the American economy and politically sensitive to the current administration. Canada wasn't simply reacting, it was hitting back where it hurt the most. While Canada couldn't escape the economic strain caused by US tariffs, suffering a $2.1 billion economic setback, its retaliation was already wreaking havoc on the American economy. Industries reliant on cross-border supply chains like automotive, agriculture, and technology bore the brunt of the blow. Car manufacturers grappled with soaring costs and logistical bottlenecks, while farmers and tech firms faced mounting losses. But the real shock came when Canada escalated its fight beyond tariffs. In a bold move, Canadian leaders urged citizens to boycott travel to the US, a strike that hit the American tourism sector hard. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau publicly encouraged Canadians to explore their own country instead of spending money in the US. British Columbia's Premier David Eby echoed the sentiment, emphasizing that supporting the US economy, while it undermined Canada's, was counterproductive. The boycott's impact was swift. Flight Centre, Canada's largest travel agency, reported a flood of cancellations for US vacations, with luxury trips rebooked elsewhere. Key tourism states, Florida, California, Nevada, New York, and Texas, faced devastating losses. Florida, where Canadians made up 38% of foreign visitors in 2023, braced for a massive drop in tourism revenue. Texas, which saw $403.3 million in Canadian travel spending that year, prepared for a financial hit. According to the US Travel Association, even a 10% dip in Canadian travel could mean 2 million fewer visits and 140,000 American hospitality jobs at risk. The National Travel and Tourism Office underscored the gravity of the situation. In 2024 alone, 20.4 million Canadian tourists injected $20.5 billion into the US economy, revenue now threatened by the boycott. As tourism plummeted, industries faltered, and unemployment climbed, the US faced the full weight of Canada's economic counteroffensive. The trade war, initially meant to corner Canada, had instead plunged America into an economic quagmire. A Brookings Institution study projected that over 400,000 American jobs could be lost due to retaliation from Canada and Mexico. Industries heavily reliant on exports, automotive, agriculture, and alcohol suffered deeply. Manufacturers, already grappling with rising raw material costs and supply chain disruptions, were now laying off workers and freezing expansion plans. Consumers weren't spared either. The White House acknowledged that tariffs had driven up consumer prices, with businesses passing the costs on to everyday Americans. Groceries, cars, and household goods all grew more expensive as imports slowed and manufacturing costs rose. What started as an attempt to force Canada's economic hand had backfired, straining the very economy the US sought to protect. States entered this trade war confident it could dictate the terms. But instead of bending Canada to its will, it found itself entangled in a costly conflict. With 400,000 jobs on the line, surging consumer prices, and key industries faltering, America was bearing the brunt of its own aggressive policies. Meanwhile, Canada wasn't just retaliating, it was reinforcing its economic foundations. By diversifying trade, investing in domestic industries, and standing firm against economic intimidation, Canada showed it wouldn't be bullied. Ultimately, what the US envisioned as an economic show of force had transformed into a crisis for American workers and businesses. The message was clear. When Canada is pushed, it pushes back. And this time, it's the United States feeling the sting. The growing economic damage could soon force President Donald Trump to reconsider his hardline. A trade stance. With billions in losses, plummeting tourism, and surging unemployment, political pressure on the White House was mounting. Republican leaders in key states, especially Florida, Texas, and New York, faced fierce backlash from businesses reeling under Canada's countermeasures. If Trump's tariffs continue to backfire, he might have no choice but to soften his position, or risk an economic and political fallout that could shake his presidency.